But anyway, what I want to tell you about this recent trip my brother and I went on, I've been out of commission for a little while, and where I go, typically when you're calling coyotes like I do, and the country just gets beat up with a lot of people calling, I've got to traditionally and strategically go to places where I think I can get numbers. And with that said, I'm usually out of cell phone service. Like, I don't even have nothing, like within 100 miles. Good morning, Tristan. Glad you're with us. Good morning, Mike. And, well, that's great. Thanks, SFR. Traditionally, in going to these places, like I said, there's no cell phone service, and I tried to go live and it kicked me off and said that it was terrible service. I really apologize. I love trying to keep everybody informed, and what I'm going to have to do is upgrade computers and systems and get this figured out so I can actually do a live in a motel room. I really enjoy doing this just to give you an update on what I'm doing. So as I went on this trip, there were several things that were against my brother and I on this hunt. One, it's late in the year. March, middle of March, I consider late in the year. After a coyote breeds, the pair breeds, they try to find their area where they're going to have their den. And when they set up their denning area where they've got food, they've got water, they've got an ideal location where they can strategically dig a hole and have their pups, or if they're just going to be in a rock cliff, wherever they're going to be, typically a coyote, that is its range, it's his turf, its territory. So what we had to do is we had to try to find these places in order to get the coyotes very aggressive to respond to the calls. One of the other things we had against us was the heat and the wind. They were absolutely terrible. That's one of the downfalls of calling late in the year. It just gets too hot, too windy. It switches over to that springtime change in the weather pattern where you go from winter to spring, and it heats up, and whenever it heats up, the wind currents really start going. So we had the heat against us, the wind against us, and other than just sitting in a motel room, I was going absolutely nuts, and there was no service. So and I hear you, Callis. Utah is very hard hunting. Called in a porcupine. I think I've had one close to me and come crawling in one time, but it's been many years ago in Wyoming, Ryan. But anyway, where I went, my brother and I, we had one time, we killed 29 coyotes, I believe, in 3 days of calling, or 27. We didn't actually have all the coyotes in this picture because several of them were very, very mangy, and we just left them lay. They were so bad we didn't want to pick them up. But this is one of the pictures of the area where we went to hunt. And typically, like, this picture was taken probably in January or February. I'm not quite sure yet. It's been many years ago. But the point I'm trying to make is, I've got to go a long ways from civilization to do well. And the reason I go long ways from places is because the average person isn't going to spend the money to go try to resource the area and get permission and scout it and try to spend a lot of time and money going to these places. Now me, I know that my eyes, I'm good enough at scouting. I can drive through the country and see what I like, and then I go into one ranch. If I can get permission, I'm set, because then I can talk to that rancher about other ranches and see if I can get more permission. So typically, I do real well in this area, but it's so late in the year that it really caught me off guard, and we struggled hard, and that's to be accepted just because just because I'm a professional predator caller does not mean that I'm going to have easy street and just be able to call in coyotes all the time. I would say yes and no, Buckeye. They have general areas where they're going to den. Does not mean they're going to be in the same denning hole every year, or the location. They might be off of it a quarter of a mile, but they're going to be in the same area. So basically, we were hunting a new ranch, and this guy had been losing calves. And so my brother and I had to go in and try to learn this ranch. And that's really, really hard. When I go into a new area and try to learn it, I'm messing up all kinds of coyotes, because you can't just go blowing in there, blowing on a call, because they come in behind you. They're coming in from over here. You think this looks good, but it's not good. So you have to learn. You have to learn the area, and that's the toughest thing whenever you're on a new ranch. Now, some of the things that we learned about this trip, and that's the great thing. Even though I'm 47 years old and been calling coyotes my whole life, I still learn. And I would say the moment you say you don't learn anything, you know nothing, because you've always got to evolve and change and learn and pick up on things in order to be successful. So some of the things, like I said, that my brother and I had to key on, is we had to try to figure out where the coyotes exactly were. If we heard one howl in the morning, we had to know right where he was so we could slip in close to him and try to see if we can get him to territorially come charging in. And that worked for us. So we had to be right in the territory of those coyotes in order to get the aggression up so they would respond. We only had in roughly 7 days of calling, but bear in mind, I didn't call all day every day because it got too hot. We would make 2-3 stands in the morning. Sometimes the wind was already at 30 mile an hour, and I'm not going to waste my time calling when it's windy like that, because all I'm doing is messing up the whole country. I don't want to go hit key spots when the wind's 30, because that coyote doesn't even want to come in anyway. So if you go call that spot and then you try to come back when it's calm, you've already boogered the spot up, because they heard that sound already and they may be cautious to it anyway. So I don't go into the area just blow and call all over the place. So I back out, let the conditions get to what they need to be for me to be successful, then slip in and then do what I need to do. Now, 11 kills in the whole 7-day span, that's not very many. But we killed coyotes that were old. And one of the females that I killed, I shotgunned her 2 mornings ago. She come charging in. And it was probably my second or third series, and it was really, really calm. And we were right in an area where he had lost a calf, and we snuck in there. Conditions were absolutely beautiful. It was about 27 degrees, and she come charging in, and I shotgunned her at about 20-25 yards. And when I picked her up, she only had one canine tooth that was almost of full length, but it was so wore down that you could tell her age was just unbelievably old. Her other canine was pretty much gone. Her bottom 2 canines were, just stubs, and all of her incisors in the middle between the canines, they were ground down to nothing, and a couple of them were missing. And then all of her side teeth, her molars, they were totally gone on the top. So I'm guessing, I'm going to try to have her age, but I'm going to say she was over 10 years old, and her eyes were sunk clear back in her head. So we killed a coyote that I feel could have been one of the killers, because a mangy coyote or an old coyote, their teeth aren't as sharp, but when they're old, they're seasoned. They know what they need to do to survive. And with her being probably pregnant and going to have pups, she needed to keep her body condition up, and she might not be able to catch a rabbit. So basically she came in very aggressive because this was her turf, and her mate, they establish it as theirs, and that's what they want to do. Good morning, Justin. Try to catch up on a few of you here. My Hemi. Good morning from Cape Breton, Nova Scotia. Thank you. Did you used to practice hunting in the wind, SFR? Whenever I lived in Wyoming, it was always windy, so I had to learn to call in the wind. So that was, I've called in more wind than probably a lot of people, and I'm talking hurricane gust force winds. It's taught me to be a better hunter, especially when you're in a competition. But anyway, back to that old coyote that I killed. I know for a fact that she was probably one of the potential candidates for killing the calves. And to me, that makes me feel better than anything, getting that coyote out of the system. Now it's going to pull another coyote in, but that doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to be a killer. I had one coyote about 3 or 4 mornings ago that came in and actually sniffed my Johnny Stewart GS2. Now, I've had coyotes get close to my e-calls, but I've never had one walk up. I set it on top of a hill and I was on the shady side, and my brother told me there was a coyote coming. He didn't know where it was. He could see its shadow, and he's never seen that either, where he's filming and he's watching the coyote's shadow, not knowing where the coyote's at, and he saw the coyote coming towards the call, but he didn't know where it was. And that coyote, as soon as it crested the hill to my left, it ran up and it sniffed the call, and then it ran down the hill right by me. So I shot it at, 15 yards, 10 yards. But that was one of the craziest things I've had happen on this trip and over the years. So that was kind of cool to see. But just going back to the hunt, I want to let everybody know, just like I said, just because I'm a professional does not mean I've got easy street, does not mean I get choice ranches, does not mean that I've got coyotes that have never ever been called before. It just means I've got to work harder to stay on top of everything, and I've got to use my own analysis and judgment of what I feel is the best thing that we can do to increase our success. Now, I called it off many days. As soon as the temperature got up and the wind got up, I told my brother, I said, we're done. We're going back to the motel. So we'd be in the motel from 10 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon. So basically, we laid around and we took naps because we were up at 3 in the morning. Now, when I go to a spot, I'm going to be waiting at the spot I'm going to be calling before it's light enough to see, because I can't waste around knowing that the first stand of the day is going to be one of the best, because it's cold, it's crisp, they're still active, and I want to kill those coyotes while they're still active. So that's just some of the stuff that we learned. We were very persistent. Yesterday, we had our last morning of calling. I thought it was going to be phenomenal. We woke up and it was windy. It was about 22 to 25 mile an hour winds. Absolutely takes the wind out of your sails. I was hoping to hunt all day and then drive all night to get home. Instead, we cut it short at about 1 o'clock, and then we headed for home. I got home last night at midnight. Just totally wore me out. The calling wasn't very good. I actually called in 2 coyotes that I should have killed, and I missed them. And that right there tells me I'm done. I just get so upset when I miss a coyote, especially when I know I should have killed it. I don't know what happened. I've got to research it and see. But the shotgun loads that I was shooting, and I've told all of you this a million times, but I'm telling you, I wouldn't just be saying this, but I've pounded so many coyotes with this load. The Hornady Heavy Magnum coyote load, nickel-plated BB, that's what I shoot at my coyotes, and I absolutely destroy them. And I think I killed on this trip 3 or 4, and then the rest were all rifle. I shot quite a few of them with my 22-250, shooting the 50 grain VMAX Superformance Hornady, but I switched on my 223. I started shooting this American Gunner 50 rounds to a box, and what it is, it's a 55 grain hollow point. I wanted to go to a hollow point because I wanted to try a different load in my 223. I love a hollow point, and I just wanted to see what it would do. I was very, very impressed with the action on the Coyote. It wasn't blowing them up. It was just totally smoking them. So I did find that out on this trip, and hopefully my brother and I will take one more quick trip. I wanna go see if I can't kill a few more coyotes. I've got another cattle ranch that they're just starting to calve that I want to try to hit. But like I said, I'm getting this live stuff figured out. Hopefully I can do it a little more. A lot of messages. Yep, the porcupine and a shotgun, that'll do them every time. You're right, Stephen. You've got to get to the thicker stuff to get coyotes, especially when it gets hot. Try to slip into where they're bedded, and they'll come slinking in with time. So thank you all for joining me on this live. I'm going to get off of here because I feel like I'm just rambling on. But the trip was a success. I didn't kill the numbers that I wanted. Remember, this was 3 days, and that's what I like to do. I like to go in and just pound them hard, kill a lot of doubles. But this trip was different just because of the heat and the wind. It's one of those things you've got to live with. So thank you all for joining. I'll try to connect with you again on Monday or Tuesday, and we'll get into some more coyote calling stories and branch into other things as well. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining, William. Thanks, Trip Daddy. I appreciate you being here. Thank you, everybody. Where do I like to shoot a coyote with a rifle, Matt? When they're facing me, absolutely just right in the throat, right below where the throat meets the chest, just right there, or broadside, straight up the front leg, about halfway in the body there. Just usually throttles the coyote. When you break down that front shoulder and you blow in there, you're taking the lungs, and sometimes the fragments go right into the heart, so it'll destroy them fast. No, I don't think so, Buckeye fan. There's no coy wolves over here. It's just mainly all coyotes. Isaac, more coffee, you're right. Thanks, Neil, for joining. Thanks, Greg. I'm getting this live figured out, so hope you all join next time. Thanks again.